Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Serghei Pavlovich, it's official. Scariest man in the heavyweight division, not named Johnny Bones Jones. Maybe Stipe. We'll see what happens when Stipe comes back in. But the man proved the point. He made a statement. We said it here on this show. If Serghei Pavlovich could stuff a takedown of Curtis Blaydes, stuff his face into the mat, deliver some ground and pound, we'll eat all of the words. And that's what we're here to do here, folks. Bringing in my co-host, the Santa Fe Bomber himself, the New Mexico native. Brother, it feels like an Ngannou moment right here with Serghei Pavlovich. We just keep getting proven wrong time and time again. It's time to acknowledge it. What are our thoughts on Serghei Pavlovich moving forward?
Derick, I should have showed up with a plate and a spoon for eating a little bit of humble pie, because you're right, man. We had to eat the words last night because Pavlovich is a scary man. I was out at the bars, we were watching the fights with the homies, and one of my boys was asking what's going on. I was like, just worry about the heavy hands of Pavlovich, because it showed up in a devastating way, brother. It was a fun night of fights. It was an interesting night of fights. Some controversy. You said it before when we were off the mics. I'm living good, brother. How you living?
I'm living good. I mean, I guess I could be living better, because if you're looking and you're watching the show right now, folks, you see winner of the week goes to my man AJ again on another streak. He got it done. It was a close margin, but he got it done. So let's talk about it. Let's jump straight to it. Prop recap. All right, man. Lots of red, a little bit of white, not a lot of gold. That's what you want to see is the gold, but you hit it, my man. Bruno Silva over Brad Tavares. Iasmin Lucindo over Brogan Walker. That was, I guess, one of our three Bloody Water Podcast consensus picks. Let me pull this screen down so we can actually talk about the results of the night, right? We had one no contest, the Bobby Green, Jared Gordon. So, of course, that one is just not going to count. It wasn't a draw, it wasn't anything like that. But Semelsberger over Wells, close fight. It was a pick'em fight. It came down to it. We'll talk about it in a second right here. I just want to know, out of any of these bouts that surprised you the most, are we saying it's the heavyweight fight, or are we even really that surprised?
You know, man, taking revisionist history for that heavyweight fight, not really surprised. You know, we hit on it a little bit in the pre-show and we'll break it down a little bit more. The one I am a little more surprised about was the Semelsberger and Wells fight. How it's close. It was a pick'em. We called it in the pre-show, folks. Going to start out hot, heavy, fast, and then it's going to be a match after that. Kind of what we saw, but the other guy got the win on this one. Semelsberger looks a little lost sometimes. Break it down a little bit more. Which one are you most surprised by, Derick?
Yeah, without, saying too much, the reality is Bruno Silva came back and looked like a world beater again against Brad Tavares. And this is one of those where it's just like the consistency gets weird, where it's like you're consistent here, then the Prey fight, and then GM3 puts it on you, and then now all of a sudden you're the world beater again. I don't know. Sometimes MMA is weird, and I will just give you folks this one piece of advice before we move on. Everything can look fantastic on paper. That's the hard thing about this wagering thing, right? Everything on paper looks good. Stylistically, you played it out in your head a million times of how this thing can work. You watched film, you've watched tape. But if the fighter that you think is going to implement a certain game plan doesn't implement that game plan, well, everything goes haywire right there. So with that being said, folks, I want to give you a friendly reminder. If you have not subscribed here to the show, you need to subscribe right now. What are we talking about? This is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. AJ, let the people know, and then let's move on.
Folks, the best analytics in the game, the best breakdown in the game with a tracking record, far better than a lot of others out there, man. We won't name any names, but you know where to come to win the money, get the best breakdowns, and go out there and show your friends that you know a little something about this fight game. Favorite Fighter's Favorite Fight Show. Hit that subscribe button right now, folks.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's talk about these fights, brother. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. Now, off the bat, AJ, I do have to ask you, do you think that Curtis Blaydes decided, I'm going to stand and trade with Serghei Pavlovich due to the success that he came off of when he stood and traded with Chris Daukaus and put him away? I mean, not nearly the same heavyweight, but did that factor into the game plan?
I think so, Derick. And we saw the moment where Curtis Blaydes says, oh, shit, I got to get back to my bread and butter, because I tried to stand and bang with this dude, and he's caught me 3 times now, and it's hurt every single time. And then what worried me most, Derick, what had me in my seat going, oh, shit. When Curtis Blaydes shot, he got to the hips, and Pavlovich said, no, sir, and just pushed him right off. And I knew, I was like, oh, no, Curtis Blaydes already a little wobbly in the head. It's going to be a rough one. Were you also a little nervous going into that too, Derick? Or were you just completely like, all right, this is game mode. This is what happens. All right, here we go.
I knew when Curtis Blaydes said, I'm going to take the same, I thought it would be like, I'm not going to shoot immediately, right? I'm going to kind of hide the game plan. I'm going to poke at him, draw his offense out, and then I'm going to come in and shoot. But when I saw him just trading, I thought that he landed and he probably got a little confident off of that land, right? And we've seen it time and time again. Dudes who make their entire path to the title off of this game plan, and then they start getting a couple knockouts or a couple submissions, whatever, and then they ditch the game plan, and then they say, all right, I'm going to go toe-to-toe. This is not the guy to go toe-to-toe with. And had I known Curtis Blaydes would play boxer in this matchup, you go smash spot Pavlovich, right? Because you're right. By the time Curtis Blaydes went for the takedown, it was a takedown of necessity rather than a takedown of setup, of strategy. So, yeah. Pavlovich stuffed him, got the hips back, a little bit of ground and pound, bro. And then at the end of the day, man, the referee did the right thing. You know what I mean? Curtis Blaydes kind of got put out of his misery. He tried to come back up and say, oh, no, I'm still here. But against Pavlovich, you're not, bro. This dude possesses something different. The scary part is not that he hits hard. Every heavyweight hits hard. But AJ, do we know any other heavyweights in the UFC's division right now that is as fast, as crisp, as accurate, and who has a chin like Pavlovich? Because let's not forget, Pavlovich ate a couple from Blaydes too.
Ate a couple from Blaydes, Derick, and not only all the things you mentioned, but Pavlovich is also technically proficient. This dude punches straight down the pipes, hands come back to the chin. Very impressive. And as far as quickness, agility, speed, sharpness, the only other one is the guy at the top of the list, Jon Jones. And I mean, I would give those all to Jones in that fight, but still, man, this is a scary dude in Pavlovich that we're going to have to deal with. And the rest of the division is put on notice right now. This dude is the real deal, probably the next contender unless Stipe actually gets the fight.
Somebody needs to figure out how to put Pavlovich on his back. That's what it comes down to, man. Nobody can figure it out. Curtis Blaydes was our best chance of that happening, and it couldn't happen because you got to think too, man. You're not going to sit here and just shoot on Pavlovich without setting it up. That's terrible game plan. That's literally like when Ngannou sprawled and then turned to the back on Miocic, and we said, this dude's unstoppable now, right? That's Serghei. When I saw him literally deliver that ground and pound, I'm like, it's going to be tough to mess with this dude. So let's talk about it, bro. Curtis Blaydes, unfortunately, I think he found himself in a place in his career where there's just too many of these guys that are just a step ahead. They're just a step ahead to where you're forever relegated to that number 2, number 3, number 4 spot. Does Curtis Blaydes drop out of the top 5 after this loss?
I think so, Derick, and I don't want to call retirement right away, but I think Curtis Blaydes needs something to kind of get him back into that, man, because he even though like you said, he knocked out Dawkins and he's had kind of an up and down run, it doesn't feel like he has the exact X factor to get him back to gold or get him to the title contention. There was a time where Curtis Blaydes was a scary man, and then the rest of the division caught back up to him. And then he became a scary man again, and then the rest of the division caught back up to him again, and it seems like they're about to surpass him. I don't know, Derick, do you think Curtis Blaydes will have a lot of time left in the division or at least left in the promotion?
Well, I'm just looking at the guys surrounding him in the rankings, right? You got Cyril Gane, Stipe, Pavlovich ahead of him, right? Tom Aspinall, who he technically beat. I would like to see them run that back. Then you have Tuivasa, Volkov, Sergey Spivak, Rosenstruck. Here's the thing about the heavyweight division. You get longevity in this division. So you can suffer a couple of losses and still stick around. Listen, man, there's not a lot of guys that could beat Curtis Blaydes. Serghei Pavlovich just happens to be one of those guys. So title shot has to be next in terms of like wait it out. Don't take no more fights. You've earned your position. You're the number 1 contender. If he fights Jon Jones, can Serghei Pavlovich get it done?
I don't think so, Derick. I mean, have we seen anybody get close to getting it done besides maybe Dominic Reyes? And that was long ago. I mean,
Alexander Gustafsson, Reyes, that's really it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Pavlovich has the multitude of skill facets. You know, he has his big blitz that he goes for, and I think Jon Jones knows how to step out of the way and avoid it, get on his bike and tire him out, and then go to work. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you this. I am not at liberty to give a prediction on whether he can get the job done because this man is making me eat too much humble pie, and I'm trying to go on a diet, brother. I'm trying to lay off a little bit of that humble pie. So no crow to be eaten for this one. I'm going to leave the door open, and I'm going to say Serghei Pavlovich, if he puts his mind to it, this man might be able to do anything he wants. Fantastic TKO record-breaking victory for Pavlovich, who earns his 6th consecutive first-round knockout in the UFC. Bro, stunning. All right. This man is wreaking havoc on the division. Let's move to this co-main, brother. All right, man. Blindado, Bruno Silva. He gets back on track against Brad Tavares, man. And some people are calling early stoppage on this one. I was betting for Brad Tavares. I was rooting for Brad Tavares. And unfortunately, I don't think that giving him an extra 5-10 seconds really would have made much of a difference in the fight because Bruno Silva, I said it on the pre-show, the man is a finisher. And this man comes to finish. And when he lands and he's able to get those straight shots on you, Not a lot of people can circumnavigate that. Not a lot of people can survive those shots. Do you think that Brad Tavares, I mean, what happened in this matchup, man? He just got caught, and that was just the beginning of the end, man.
I think that was it, man. It really, to me, was a thing of momentum. Bruno Silva came in. He was feeling it. He had the thing. He caught Brad Tavares and just went for the finish. You said it yourself, Derick. He's a finisher, and he kind of came back into his former self, his limelight that he had. And it was just a rough night of who the best man was won. And, I mean, 9 times out of 10 or even out of maybe 6 times out of 10, Brad Tavares probably wins that fight. But he showed up, man. Bruno Silva showed up and proved that he was who he was back, 6, 7 months ago.
Yeah, man. And I'll say this, Bruno Silva, that was his 20th career knockout right there against Brad Tavares. So also you're fighting for something, right? It feels good to get back in that win column. And he has this stoicism about him, man. He does it almost every time that he gets it. But he gets these walk-off TKOs where he hits the big one, right? Might give a little follow-up on the ground and pound. But then he just kind of jogs off with this look of like, that's how I expected the fight to go. So I think when those GM3s, those Alex Paeta type matchups happened, and he has to really fight through some adversity and doesn't get it done, there's almost this like, this isn't going as according to plan. So it could be, and I don't want to be too dramatic here, but do you think that, you said momentum, right? For Bruno Silva, if things are going well, watch out. Dangerous man. Things start slipping up a little bit, confidence drops, and everything kind of crumbles. Do you kind of see it that way?
That's what I see, Derick, and that's kind of where we've seen the history lie, and especially on Saturday night with how Bruno Silva came out and put it to Brad Tavares. That's what I was thinking. Because other than that, I haven't seen a skill jump or him learn a new style or develop something, put another X factor in his game. It just seemed like Homeboy had the right mental capacity to go in there and win the fight.
That's right. And this is a tough loss for Brad Tavares because now you're really in this career limbo of 2 losses back to back, not against bad oppositions, Dricus du Plessis and Bruno Silva, 2 top guys in the middleweight division. But where do you go if you're Brad Tavares? Stick around as a gatekeeper, keep fighting? I mean, do you have any bold predictions for either of these fighters?
Ooh, Brad Tavares, man. I think Bruno Silva can go a little bit further, but I wouldn't give up on either of these fighters, man. There's a lot of longevity that they can get around. Sure, we might see him have to fight a couple newcomers, but if they can get the confidence and skill set and the momentum back on their side, I don't have any hesitations to just keep him out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the tough part about this, man, is that the last 5 wins of Brad Tavares' career are all against guys who aren't in the UFC anymore. So it's kind of tough because it's like now you're this historical guy. You're a real OG. You feel me? So you have to start giving him some OG fights or something. I don't know, bro. But big win by Blindado, Bruno Silva, another beautiful knockout on the record. And with that being said, brother, let's move on to what was supposed to be one of the most fun fights, right? Ideally, especially when Jared Gordon came out with the opposite of what I thought the game plan was going to be, turn into a wet blanket, hold Bobby Green, do not let him get going, and stop the game plan. AJ, he did it on his feet, though, man. He was making Bobby Green miss. He was messing up the timing. He was trying to beat up that lead leg. Things were looking good for Jared Flash Gordon until an incidental clash of heads. So before we talk about the inevitable outcome, I mean, what do you think it was about Jared Gordon's very technical, basic, fundamental style that was giving Bobby Green fits?
I think what it was exactly what you're mentioning, Derick. Everybody expected Flash Gordon to come out and try to shoot wrestling and try to go and play, actually towards his game. And in fact, when I saw that Flash was up here trying to, stick with the 1s and 2s, I was like, oh shit, Bobby Green's going to have a fun night. This is going to be a banger of a fight. And then Flash Gordon came out and actually started piecing up Bobby Green. It was wild. He was faster than him. He was hitting harder. And I thought, oh shit, this is going to be a scrap right now. Unfortunately, it ends how it ends. But still, man, I think that shock of the guy not playing his game plan, I think that's what kind of set Bobby Green on his heels a little bit. And he didn't have that same kind of timing, that crack that he normally does. He also didn't really have that kind of like swagger he walks in and kind of talks shit with yet. Maybe he was getting it going. Maybe it wasn't at the beginning. And we only saw, a minute and a half of the fight, 2 minutes, 4 minutes of the fight. But still, it didn't seem like King Bobby Green's style yet. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like he was building up to it. Would you agree or do you think?
No, I was actually going to say the same thing. It felt like he was building a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, it is really weird to watch Bobby Green, his style, his very unorthodox style, when it's not working. It's a little weird. because he's throwing these shots that normally is pop, pop, right on the chin, right? Like he's catching it. But this one's just air. And you're like, oh, okay, you're looking a little, okay. You know, Jared Gordon starts, you know, putting like I said, the ones and twos, the fundamentals. Sometimes that's all it takes is just crisp, basic fundamentals, man. Tim Duncan, big fundamental style. All right, bro. Let's talk about the actual outcome, though, because that's the controversy. Bobby Green goes in. This is Southpaw Orthodox, right? Dominic Cruz said it 1 trillion times on the broadcast, but it is true. Clash of heads happen all the times when you're in these opposite lead stances, right? Bobby Green comes in for the step-in elbow, misses the elbow instead, straight forehead on the temple, drops Jared Gordon. But his argument is this. Well, Jared Gordon, when he went down, he was over here trying to throw me in a triangle. I had to get that thing off, and once I started delivering some ground and pound, that's when he was out. I need my money. He's like, yeah, it happened. It was a clash of heads. I didn't mean to do it, but the follow-up shots are what put him out, not the clash of heads. Is there any merit to that, or do you say knockdown via headbutt? Sorry, it's over.
This is a hard one, Derick, because on the broadcast, I believe it was the Iron Lung, the great Paul Felder was saying this is the most fair thing that can happen. I don't really know. I don't know if I agree with that because it is technically by letter of the law the most fair thing that can happen. Both people just get their show money. Nobody profits. It was an accidental headbutt that caused the start of the finishing action. So I think if all things were equal and everybody could be perfect in the situation, the accidental headbutt goes down, the referee steps in before the other shots land, and then that's probably the most fair thing. But I mean, you're right, Derick. Jared Gordon wasn't out by the headbutt, but he was on the ground seeing stars. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that right there is a little bit unfair, you know? So I don't know. This is a hard one, man, because I feel like both guys had a great fight while it was there. I think they deserve some money as well, but I mean, you can't really pay for them. It's a really weird situation.
I think the question really becomes, if this is fair play, no contest, listen, it is what it is, unfortunate circumstance, do we play revisionist history and do we talk about the big elephant in the room and say, well, Chris Curtis literally just got dropped via same situation. He ended up, though, surviving against Kelvin Gastelum, took it all 3 rounds. And a lot of people are saying that headbutt that Chris Curtis got was factored into the decision of him losing. It was considered more of a knockdown than a headbutt. So it's almost like, I don't know, man, picking and choosing, right? You can't go case by case. You have to do it across the board. So does this lead into bigger controversy? Does Chris Curtis have any justification in trying to get his fight appealed or anything like that? What do you think?
I think he has a lot of justification to be sour, to be mad at the fact that this happened and not on his fight. Because you could take it as everybody needs to go back and revise everything and go all do that. That sounds like a lot of work. What I think happened in this one is they learned from the last incident with Chris Curtis and they said, okay, well, that happened. It was bad. Mm-hmm. Let's try to fix it the next time this happens. And this is what we saw, a no contest, which admittedly probably the most fair thing that could happen of what the outcome was. Yeah. But I don't think they're going to go back and say, take a win with Calvin Gastelum, especially I think Calvin's on a run, but that's none here nor there.
Yeah. No, it's not going to happen, but you do have to feel for the action man, Chris Curtis. You have to feel for both of these fighters, Bobby Green and Jared Gordon, both, because there's no career advancement here. And at this point, every fight counts for both of these guys. Specifically, like we said, Bobby Green is not Bobby Green no more. That's King coming back. So hopefully King comes back and starts a new run, undefeated. You know what I'm saying? All right, brother. Well, with that being said, let's move on to the smash spot of the main card. A fight that we kind of said, hey, does this fight deserve to be on the main card? Not really, but let me tell you why it is on there. And I think it delivered for every reason. We said Lucindo's aggressive. She's going to walk forward. She's going to pressure Brogan Walker, and she's going to make her, you know what I mean, get on her back foot and take some shots. And that's what she did. How impressed can you be over a Iasmin Lucindo over here, given the level of competition between Iasmin Lucindo in her debut and Brogan Walker is just not the same. It's just 2 different level prospects. So, I mean, what do you take out of this performance for Lucindo?
I'm impressed by the fundamentals, the technique, and the mindset that Lucindo walks into the ring with, man. Mm-hmm. She is full her style of fight. And when she's throwing literally that jab and then 2 down the pipe and she's able to crack you, it's very fast. It's a pop, pop. Very, very quick hands from Lucindo, man. And I'm excited to see because she bloodied up Brogan Walker a little bit. But you're right. There's a big asterisk right here of how high the skill level is. Because once she starts getting into, a little bit higher of a talent competition, it's not going to be just somebody spamming leg kicks only at you, completely blind leg kicks too, so you can counter back on them.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit harder, so that's where I'm interested to see where this goes, because Lucindo, by all means, man, is very, very talented and can have a longevity in the sport, but we'll see how when she fights some real competition. Not to say that the other ladies aren't.
Yeah.
It's just they were more a little one-dimensional, if you will.
Yeah, and the thing that was interesting, man, is if you were listening to Walker's corner during the fight, they were like, Lucindo only does two things. She throws that 1-2 down the pipe, she throws that spinning back kick, and that's it. And it's rinse, wash, repeat. And I'm not going to say that that's all that she has, man. She has a lot of fights on her belt, but that's all she felt she needed to use during that fight. She didn't feel like she needed to really mix it up, at least from what I saw. So the question becomes, absolutely, higher competition. Does that 1-2 spinning back kick, does that, you know what I mean? Does that continue to work? Because Brogan Walker, for how talented she did come across on The Ultimate Fighter, it just felt like every time she gets backed up, chin sky high in the air, hands not coming back up to it, just fundamentally the basics of mixed martial arts just felt like it wasn't quite there, especially getting thrown to the wolves against a dog like Lucindo. So I mean, I guess if we had to make a prediction right here, not trying to bash anybody because this is the hurt game, right? But where does Lucindo go, man? She's 21 years old. That's what's scary about her, man. It's like the sky is the limit.
The sky is the limit, Derek. Youngest female fighter in the UFC right now. Like we were talking about, man, the 1-2, I think will always work in the game, man. If you're able to put together a crisp 1-2 and proficiently use it to where people aren't seeing it, I think that'll always work. The spinning back kick, you're probably going to need to get rid of. That's one of those flashy ones that you can hit every now and then. But as far as her skill gap, I don't want to say title contention. I want to say she's maybe a top 10er at the moment, maybe top 15, somewhere in there. We'll see when she starts really taking, some big bites out of the competition. What do you think, though?
I think that if we start to see a little bit more of a dedication towards, I'm not just going to stand and trade, keep the same aggressiveness that she kept through minute 0 through minute 15, right? But working some of that grappling. She got a couple takedowns. She even got one at the very end of the fight, right? But let's start advancing positions a little bit. Let's start working that ground and pound. Let's not have to work all 15 minutes if we don't have to. You know what I mean? I think we start seeing that. Then we're going to see some real problems on behalf of Iasmin Lucindo. But listen, this was a cash spot right here. Very chalky, minus 140 decision, actually cashed. You didn't really get much return on this one. But this one was, you could have thrown this one in one of your parlays, one of the bigger parlays to really get some juice going right there. All right, brother. The fight that started us off ended in a little bit of controversy, not really, but at the end of the day, this was a fun fight like we all pretty much imagined it to be. Jeremiah Wells, versus Matthew Semelsberger. And what happens, bro? We both had different opinions on how this fight started, and I felt like your prediction came to fruition not out of strategy, but out of necessity, right? Semelsberger knew Wells was going to start hot. This man is an athlete. He's explosive. So he said, I'm going to literally sprint to the middle of the cage, and as soon as you come in, I'm sitting down on a right hand straight down the pipe. Hurts Wells 2 seconds into the fight, and then instincts take over, and we had ourselves a barn burner in that first round, right? Now, the problem is scoring. That's what we need to talk about. Scoring criteria here. Damage versus control. And in this particular matchup, control trumped damage. Semelsberger may have only landed 35 significant strikes in the whole fight, but he had Wells on Queer Street multiple times, man. We're talking rocked in round 1, rocked in round 2, round 3. Didn't really get a chance to rock him, but still landed probably the bigger damage. However, Jeremiah Wells convincingly 30-27 times 2 right there in this split decision. So let's talk about it, man. Are you concerned with the way this was scored, or do you think this was fair scoring?
I just wish the only way I feel like it could be more fair, Derek, I wish they would do a draw scoring per round, a 29-29, because that's how I would have had round 1. Yeah. Round 1, 29, that was even. Yeah, Semelsberger had him hurt, but it was only in the first 45 seconds. And then, when you have 4 minutes and 15 seconds of control time where you're not trying to advance position, you're not trying to push off the hips, you keep just putting your arm around his head, and that's about all you're doing. It's not a good look. So that I agree. I think both the round 1 tie, and I would have actually given the other ones to Jeremiah Wells as well, because he was controlling more of his fight. He was the one dictating how the fight went, and I do think that matters. Unless you're just a walking punching bag, then that's the one. It doesn't matter. But I think the right guy won, even though contentious, not really.
Round 2 and round 3 clearly went to Jeremiah Wells. I thought round 2 was his best round because he didn't just get top control, he was landing damage on top. That's all we were asking for. The problem is when you get the control time, you're laying on top of somebody in half guard or whatever, and you're just laying there. Kind of like, and I don't want to bring this up, but Muhammad Usman in the prelims versus Junior Tafa. There was a lot of laying and nothing really happening, and you're still getting that round scored for you. So the problem is exactly what you highlighted. Semelsberger, there was really no attempts to utilize his legs. He was using half of his body to do all of the work, and against a supreme athlete like Jeremiah Wells, it's just not going to happen. My question, though, is that now we're starting to see that was probably the most hurt Jeremiah Wells has been in his entire career. So moving up the ranks, because that's what's going to happen with a big win over Semelsberger, this win counts. This style of his, clearly it's working, but is there an antidote? Do one of these higher level fighters at 170 pounds, are they going to have an antidote to the Jeremiah Wells puzzle?
To answer your question, yes. I think there's going to be the ones that know how to escape off the bottom, how to use multi-limbs, how to play into and then reverse the position of Jeremiah Wells and use that strength against him. I think there's those fighters out there, especially in the 170-pound division. My big kind of question or X factor that comes into Jeremiah Wells is how in the world did Semelsberger not put him away? Like, this boy has a chin on him, and especially I think it was round 2 where he was going for a takedown, and Semelsberger turns and cranks an elbow on Jeremiah Wells' head right on the temple. You saw his legs hit the ground. 9 times out of 10, everybody goes to sleep, or you keep just dropping elbows on, and the ref steps in, except for Jeremiah Wells. That's kind of what blew my mind here. Is this guy has just ultimate resolve and chin, and just like a mental capacity to stay calm in the fight and get the fight where you want it. That right there is a big X factor to me, Derek. Do you think they're going to see a lot of people struggling putting away Jeremiah Wells, or was this just a one-off where he's really just in the game?
No, I think people are going to struggle to put him away unless you flatline him. I think he's one of those guys. There's another fighter that comes to mind right now who I believe he just got cut from the UFC, actually, man. And he's the dude who comes in, he does a backflip, like 3 backflips before every single fight, and he's very similar. I'm blanking on the name. But this is another one of those guys. And I don't want to say Alves, maybe something Alves, Rafael Alves.
Say Worley Alves.
Not Worley Alves, not him. No. That's a little bit of a he's similar mold, right? But I think his name is Rafael Alves. And the point is, it's another one of these guys. You have to flatline them, or you have to drain their gas tank completely. And the scary part is Jeremiah Wells did not feel drained in round 3. All that grappling. This is a jiu-jitsu black belt, man. This is a high level dude. And the reason why I felt like Semelsberger could have an edge here is because look at the youth factor, right? 30 years old versus 36. Jeremiah Wells is 36 years old, but performing like a 27-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, this dude goes, and that should be his nickname, Motor. Instead of Muhammad Usman, it should be Jeremiah Motor Wells right there. Either way, phenomenal victory right here. I would like to see how he performs against some of the other guys in the welterweight division. I'm talking about the Neil Magny's, the Sean Brady's. I'd like to see that. 2 Philadelphia guys, Wells and Sean Brady, going against each other. I do think Semelsberger, biggest takeaway from here is, this dude learned how to grapple a little bit. You're not going to be able to stop this man. You're not going to be able to fucking stop him. But in the meantime, Jeremiah Wells, he is the winner, he is the victor, and he moves up the rankings. So with that being said, that is your main card breakdown there. Brother, I thought that was a pretty quick breakdown. Felt like we hit all 5 fights pretty quickly. Nothing too crazy in this card right here. Nothing too crazy. A little bit of controversy, I guess. But with that being said, there's some good prelim fights that we should talk about, so let's talk about it. All right, brother. So breaking it down, the first prelim fight that we have to talk about is one that I feel like sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit when we're talking about predictions on the prelims, and this one went exactly as planned. And I'm talking about Christos Giagos, right, versus Ricky Glenn. This was the Spartan versus the Gladiator. And Ricky Glenn, I guess I did my research, and I guess he did never retire. I don't know, maybe I just made that up, but it seemed like an appropriate place to retire, right? Well, you fight Christos Giagos, and you get left hook lariated, and you get put out to pasture. And this is another one of those situations, once again, here, AJ, where it's these older fighters who, even though Ricky Glenn is not an old fighter, he's just been in the game for a long, long time, a lot of wear and tear. Mm-hmm. You fight these young, crisp guys who got a little bit of speed and athleticism on you, and he made Ricky Glenn look like he was fighting in slow motion. What'd you make of it?
You said it exactly that, Derek. Fighting in slow motion, literally like they're in peanut butter or honey or something, where Giagos just looked 5 steps ahead, man. He was crisp out there. And normally I wouldn't think of Christos Giagos as the fastest, like most powerful puncher, but damn, he looked good in this fight. Hard to really break down anything in a minute and a half fight besides Christos Giagos looked sharp. And this was just one where a guy had a couple steps on you. Real rough outcome for Ricky Glenn.
That's right. And then we're going to follow a similar theme because the fight that preceded this was Montel Jackson, Rani Yahya, another young gun versus an old vet. And Montel Jackson does the thing that it's impressive, but it's almost expected. The man, I told you, he's going to look like a monster. He's going to look huge in there against Rani Yahya. And what did he do? He used his length and he put Rani Yahya out. First man to knock out Rani Yahya since 2009. First man to knock out Rani Yahya in the UFC. So, yeah, he said, all right, jiu-jitsu, well, you're not going to be able to use it if I flatline you. And that's what he did. It was sad to me. It was just another one of these OGs. Did you need to take this fight? Matchmaking-wise, is this the appropriate fight to make? But, AJ, what have we said time and time again? It's that the UFC makes you fight for your spot. You want to stick around here, you got to fight the young guns. And if you can't fight and stick around, you're out of here. Is this the end for Rani Yahya?
I kind of think so, Derek. I mean, we talked about having some like a slow fighter or looking like you're just a couple steps behind, and that's exactly what it was, man. There was a time where Rani Yahya, his name held a lot of weight in the division. And you're right, Derek. It's now being relegated to that old dude that's going to get put up by the young wolves coming forward. I think it's about that time, man. And he's not the most storied fighter at 20-11, but if you know the hitter's history of fighting, man, Yahya is a dangerous dude. Yeah. He can have some success maybe in other division or in other organizations, but I think at the big show with dudes that know how to fight and been doing it since 8 years old, probably time.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And I mean, nothing wrong with it, man. This dude's such a long storied career. It's just, if you're going to fight guys, give them the Clay Guida approach, right? And make them fight at least kind of similar guys. And if they're going to be younger, a similar style, I don't know, man. I mean, think about it. The fight that was supposed to really happen was Cody Garbrandt versus Rani Yahya, right? So imagine that one. Both of these fights, not good matchups. All right, bro. Next one, this is an interesting one because one of my favorites to root for, Karol Rosa, she pretty much got, pieced up by Norma Dumont. A classic Norma Dumont performance. And Norma Dumont, not surprising, gets the victory. She says, all right, Amanda Nunes, you haven't defended your featherweight crown since 2021. At this point, if you're not going to fight, then you need to vacate your belt, and I want to fight Holly Holm for the featherweight championship. My whole thing here, man, is I don't understand what is the point of this division. I don't understand what are they fighting for, really, because if you're the champion of the featherweight division in the UFC, that's the equivalent of being like, I'm in a two-man jiu-jitsu bracket, and I'm the champion. And it's just like, there's not enough contenders for this to be a meaningful championship, in my opinion. So why, like Norma Dumont, man, do you think she would be better off going to like the PFL or something and trying to win $1 million versus you're fighting these fights that are really bantamweights moving up to featherweight? I don't know. What do you think?
I loved Norma Dumont as a fighter, so it's hard to say, go to the PFL because you're going to get a lot less shine, but you might win $1 million and set yourself up and your family off for better, which at the end of the day, that's really all we're doing out here. But as far as the fighting, because I loved seeing her call her shot. I love seeing anybody call their shot whenever they see a moment where they get the mic and they're able to put and align their life to how they want it to be. That is amazing. But it was like you were calling for a shot that is just so unreachable and unattractive to the rest of the world that nobody wants to see that. And you're right, Derek. You can't have people clamoring for a divisional fight or championship fight with 3 people in a division, and 2 of them are absolute legends in the game, and you're just trying to make you bring yourself up off of their coattails. Not that attractive as a viewer to the people and going forward. So yeah, she probably could do better in the PFL. To answer your question, do I want to see that? No. Do I want to see her have a little bit more spunk and tenacity to her game and try to get some finishes so she could start clamoring for a 125-pound belt? Sure, that'd be amazing. Do I see that happening? We'll see.
I just think the hard part is that when your resume consists of a bunch of 135ers who are puffing themselves up to 145 to fight you, this is the equivalent of, I don't know, Cyborg when she was doing her thing over here. It's just like, why do we continue this division? I don't know. They're going to keep doing it, so it is what it is. More titles, more gold around Amanda Nunes' shoulders, right? She is the double champ after all. Mm-hmm. But and it's almost like no one cares anymore, right? Like it's like you're really you lost your belt to Pena, you got your belt back. Now that's the only one we're really focused on because that rematch is coming up. All right, either way. Like we had mentioned earlier, Usman Tafa, right? This was a fun fight. It was supposed to be a fun fight. I guess I should say. This is my sleeper. I have to apologize to you guys because this is one where it's like, how do you make a heavyweight fight the most boring fight on the prelims? I don't know. Because Junior Tafa tried to make it exciting. He had Usman on stilts multiple times in the fight. But we learned when you are a 4-0 mixed martial artist with an extensive kickboxing career who vows to never shoot a takedown ever in your time in the UFC, well, when you get put on your back, you don't know what to do. And Usman took the easiest path to victory, bro. So you can't blame him. My question to you is this, man. Usman, what is the promise of a Muhammad Usman? Because clearly, if he can't get the takedown, I see a lot of heavyweights giving this guy some problems. What do you think?
I am 100% in agreement with you, Derek. And there was a time where people were saying Muhammad Usman wasn't even going to fight in the UFC anymore. He came in, had his one big deal, and then he's just kind of leave and do what else. So I'm happy to see that he is actually staying active in this. But you're right. There's a lot of other heavyweights that know how to defend and push off and keep you at bay. And that's where we're going to see Usman run to a lot of problems because you're right. Even in his tough ultimate, like the championship, he struggled with the 205er. Mm-hmm. And that's really telling with how it's going to be going into, these big dudes that are coming in throwing absolute ham hocks down the pipe. I don't really see the skill set and the gas tank and the technical proficiency of Muhammad Usman clamoring up to the rest of the division. Do you see it the same way, Derek, or am I being a little harsh right here?
I think he still needs time for development. I think that's going to be important, right? So, yeah, keep fighting against some of these lower experienced guys, but it's just the path to victory was a smart path to victory, but in terms of like as a heavyweight fighter, it just looked like there was desperation to I have to get the takedown or else this fight could be over very quickly. And like in heavyweights, it's like that's not what you want, bro. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens from there. It's too early to judge, I think, but that was another win on the resume of Muhammad Usman. All right. So William Gomez fights Francis Marshall, the fireman Marshall. And there's a little controversy in this one too, man. But Gomez, bro, this dude survived a late rear naked choke, man, and a potential arm triangle choke. I thought it was super duper impressive. He missed weight, so it marred an overall really good performance. But this dude who rated his own performance a 5 out of 10, man, kickboxing is legit, man. He could freeze people up. I think that there's some promise on this guy's career. What do you think?
I missed the interview where he said, or the post-ring interview where he said it's a 5 out of 10. If that's true, if that's how he really feels in his heart, man, he's going to be slick. Because you're right, the kickboxing is very proficient. If he's able to grow into a little bit more, man, Gomes is going to be a killer. Because if I remember correctly, homeboy's pretty tall too. So if he's able to utilize that reach, 6 foot, 73-inch reach in the,
Featherweight.
145-pound class, pretty decent frame, man. If he can kind of keep going on his route, I see big things for Gomes. I don't necessarily see anything super crazy, but we'll see him have some fun fights here enough.
Well, I mean, it was a big test right there against Francis Marshall, who was trying to take you down the whole fight, bro. And to be able to avoid that for the majority of it was very slick. All right, bro. And then open it up, man. This dude, Brady Hiestand, talk about a sleeper, bro. Tough opponent. Danaa Batgerel. Let's be realistic, man. You're going into round 3, you're down 2 rounds, and you need to figure something out. You need something bad. And what does he do, man? He puts not the backpack, but he just puts ultimate control on Batgerel. And the controversy behind this one is some people say Danaa kind of just gave up. And he was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm getting punched in the face right here. He's got his leg wrapped around my leg. I can't move. I'm just All right, I'm cool, whatever. Bro, Brady Hiestand pulled off a miracle. That was a Hail Mary, 30 seconds left in the game, right? How many times can you do this? Because aside from the backpacking and the grappling, there are some places where some improvement can be made. So what do you think?
Yeah, we saw some clear holes, and that not necessarily a veteran, but a dude who's very skilled in the game was able to pinpoint and exploit. Excuse me, pinpoint and exploit right there, man. And Brady Hiestand, can he do this? Can he replicate this multiple times? I don't think so, man. How many times can you actually hit the Hail Mary? How many times can you hit the Grand Slam? I don't see big things like that going in for Brady Hiestand. But if he's able to have that same kind of mental composure, I see big things happening for him there. What do you think?
I think it's as simple as this. He got that dog in him, and you can never count out a dude who got the dog in him. But being tough is not enough to succeed at the highest of levels, man. But if there is one thing that I see promising about Brady Hiestand is that he doesn't quit on himself. And you got to love that, man. You're down 2-0 going into round 3. You know you need to make something happen, and you made it happen. Talk about mental fortitude right there. Talk about a interesting card, UFC Vegas 71, man. So there were some other things, right, that went on. And before we get into the rankings, just a couple quick highlights, right? The Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Bro, Garcia was looking sharp in the boxing. Tank Davis did what he needed to do, man. Hit him in the breadbasket, put him down. That was a beautiful performance. We don't talk about boxing really too much on this, man, but they say that was the biggest fight of the year. So in my opinion, man, like when you see something like that, where do you think the state of boxing is currently?
Pretty rough, Derick. Floundering, if you will. It seems like it's exactly that, floundering. When a fish jumps out of the water, they're flapping around like crazy, trying to get some attention going forward to get put back into the spot it used to be. Mm-hmm. Seems like that's what boxing is going into, and they've really, with the promotion and with like letting the managers speak and stuff like that, it really seems like they're just trying to sit on their own coattails. Let Oscar speak. Let Golden Boy speak. Let's bring up Floyd's name again. Let's really get the people excited that, hey, remember when we used to be really like the top of the top? Yeah. We're still there. We're still there. We are. That's kind of what it seemed like to me so much. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, this was a fun fight. I loved watching the tank, the bomb, the breadbasket bomb, dude. And you're right. King Garcia looked good. Good. But other than that, Derick, how many other people out there we're really excited for the undercard, for the next fight of these guys? Yeah. Who's going to be happening next? What's the X's and O's? Like, there's not really much of that, at least in the normal, casual nomenclature anymore.
That's how I feel about it, is that it's like, yeah, the top performances, you're always going to show up for the top ones, right? The big names and all that good stuff, the Charlos and that's what I'm saying. There's a handful of guys, right? Spence, right? There's like a handful of guys that you're like, oh, these are the guys that I want to watch. But for everybody else, it just feels like that's why MMA works the way that it does, is because you have consistent, maybe they're not the highest level fights every single week, but you have high level fights every single weekend. Every weekend you got something coming up, right? Like next week we got Song Yadong, Ricky Simone. I mean, bro, you know what I'm saying? But with that being said, another highlight to talk about, Patchy mixed with the first round flying knee, not even flying knee, it was really just a switch jump knee against Rafael Stotts to become, the interim bantamweight champion, and to win $1 million and to win their bantamweight World Grand Prix, This dude, Patchy Mix, is good, bro. He is so good. To do that against Rafael Stotts, that is an amazing accolade on your resume right there. And to do it being known as a jiu-jitsu guy who I think he has, 12 submission finishes. Now that's his second KO of his entire career. It was beautiful to see. So my question to you, man, is that these guys who are making their name in Bellator, who are really like killing the game right there, do you still think that there is a place where these guys say, I'm cool off of the UFC, bro. I will make my name here, kind of like Michael Chandler before he came to the UFC. But my caveat to that is, has Michael Chandler ever been more popular than he is now in the UFC? I mean, you tell me.
I don't think so, Derick. I think the only one that I could really say kind of had more star power, more celebrity status outside of the UFC was Michael Venom Page. Mm-hmm. And even then, that's like a one-off. I mean, MVP was doing things for a long time. Can they make a name in Bellator? Not really. Can they pay their family and live a life of success? 100%. Which one matters more to you? They're fighting on TV, so I imagine they want a little bit of name recognition, a little bit of that kind of star power going forward. Can it happen in the Bellator? I think the only way, and this is, I highly doubt this will ever happen, but like a 5-on-5, your top 5 champs versus our top 5 champs. Yeah. Then we can see some intermingling, but we know Uncle Dana ain't giving anybody else some shine right there.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, man, seeing some of the former UFC people flourish in Bellator or not flourish, right? Because look at all the UFC guys going to the PFL who are losing, right? But Liz Carmouche, for an example, that's a great story, man. She finally made it to the top, and she is defending her belt. Now she's going to fight Alimale McFarland, most likely a rematch for that championship for the women's flyweight belt. Anyways, man, just wanted to talk about some of the other stuff going on in MMA. And to close us out, because we are hitting around that time, let's go to a classic rankings review, brother. And I think it's very clear who we need to talk about here. it's like there wasn't much ranking implication if you really looked at this card, right? UFC Vegas 71, there's really 4 ranked fighters. You have the heavyweights in the main event, and then you had Norma Dumont and Karol Rosa. Everybody else, it didn't really particularly matter in terms of the matchups that we're having here for rankings implications. But I do want to talk about that welterweight division right there. The one we're talking about was Semi the Jedi and with Jeremiah Wells. So when I pull up the rankings right now, the most accurate rankings as it stands, of course, we're going to have a couple of shifts, right? Jorge Masvidal, he's going to get taken out the rankings. There's going to be new spots for some people. Kind of surprising, but you do see, if you take a look, you see Michel Paeta at number 15 in the rankings right there. Also 15 in our rankings, but it is still slightly surprising. Just because of his inactivity, that's the only reason he should be there. He's much more skilled than being number 15. But when we talk about these guys like Matt Semelsberger and Jeremiah Wells, I really do want to ask, if we had to use a thought experiment to say, how far can these guys go? Let's just look at number 10 to number 15. Take Masvidal out of the equation. Bro, scary lineup. Luque, Magny, Chiesa, Madalena, Paeta, Ken Wells. Let's just talk about Wells since he was the victor of his matchup this weekend. You think he can make it past any of those guys?
Man, it's a hard one. The one fight in my mind when we were talking earlier, actually covering the segment, I thought, damn, that'd be a good fight between him and Michael Chiesa. Because Chiesa would give him a lot of problems on the ground. He's able to roll around, but they also can stand up and trade and be a very scrappy fight. That's one where I think he might be able to get it past. But Della Maddalena, Michel Paeta, maybe the two explosiveness of the Michel Paeta and the Jeremiah Wells kind of cancels each other out. Then he can get past there. But even Neil Magny's a hell of an outing too, man. Vicente Luque, I don't know, man. It's there's a lot of really hard fights. Which of those do you think he can get past, Eric?
You know, it is funny because Chiesa is one that I don't know if he can get past, but I think it'd be a very good litmus test. And I'm going to cheat right here because there's actually one guy I would really like to see patched up against Jeremiah Wells. I'd like to see Jeff Neal versus Jeremiah Wells. I'd like to see the winner or like who would win in that situation, because Jeff Neal's not the takedown guy, but his takedown defense is really good, right? And if he keeps it on the feet, bro, it's going to be problems, baby. It's going to be problems. So that is an interesting one right there. But I do think at the end of the day, if you had to throw a number on Jeremiah Wells, would he crack anything higher than 14?
No.
Okay, understood.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, it just means that there's more career progression that needs to take place. But he is also 36 years old, so time is of the essence. We need to make a little bit of urgency here. With that being said, folks, that is your 60 seconds rankings review here for UFC Vegas 71. And we do have to give you the friendly reminder as we hit the outro. If you're not subscribed at this point and you're watching this program, you should absolutely smash that the subscribe button, hit the like button too, and drop a comment. This is the biggest thing, AJ. You know it, same way on Twitch, right? You don't have to say something substantial. You don't have to write some long paragraph, some beautiful poetic speech, right? Just say what's up, say what's going on, watching the show, checking you guys out. We appreciate you, because that little bit of love, you would be surprised how it helps the algorithm and it helps new people find this program. Imagine, AJ, I'm sure you've once upon a time stumbled across something where you're like, how have I not known about this? Well, that's what the Bloody Water Podcast is, AJ. Let them know.
Criminally underfollowed, criminally unsubscribed. So do your best to help us out with that and hit that subscribe button, because folks, there's only one way where you can get the best analytics, the best breakdown, and it's tuning in right here every Friday and every Monday, getting what you need to know, so that way you can go out and you know, impress some people, man. Show some status in life and actually show that you know what's going on in this game, because if there's money to be made and if you're leaving it on the table, that's your own fault. So make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. There's a reason we're winning there, and there's a reason that this show has consistently stayed above par on everybody else, folks. Hit that subscribe button.
And I will say this, when you're at a weekend or you're at the bar, right, or you're at whatever the case may be, and you're with your buddies and they're like, oh man, this main event, man, this Serghei Pavlovich, Curtis Blaydes is going to be such a banger. And then all the prelims and some of the other fights are leading up to it and they're bored, checked out, they don't know what they're watching. You're giving them game on Iasmin Lucindo versus Brogan Walker, and they're like, how do you know about these? Oh yeah, don't worry about that, but you know, on the low, it's because I watch the Bloody Water Podcast, you know what I'm saying, because we got you taken care of. All right, folks, that is it for us. Catch us next time on Friday with the pre-show for the UFC Vegas 72 card. Ricky Simone, Song Yadong. Should be a bantamweight banger right there. That's all that I got for you. Until next time, folks. Peace.